and a new way to interact with decentralized finance using multisigs. So you've probably seen this picture floating around crypto Twitter before. The decentralized finance protocol have reached 1 billion in US dollars worth of assets locked. Granted, the last peak was mainly the Ether price appreciating, but still it's a major signal that DeFi has reached product market fit, and more users are actually willing and able to interact with these protocols. So where is the next push in DeFi coming from? I'm pretty convinced that one of the next pushes will be multi-signature wallets, and that's because there's currently more than 1 billion US dollar worth of assets stored in multi-signature wallets, and those assets are not connected to DeFi right now. Because we at Gnosis are building multi-signature wallets. We are doing a lot of user research right now, trying to figure out what are the needs and pains of multi-signature users. And we hear over and over again that multi-signature users do actually want to interact with these protocols. They want to put liquidity to Uniswap to gain interest. They want to stream money using Sablier. They want to manage their ENS domains. They want to do all kinds of stuff, but it's just very hard to do it right now. So there's no easy and trusted way to interact with DeFi from multisigs today, and we should change that. So let's talk about DeFi and multisigs. But first, what are multisigs even? So multisigs is under the umbrella of smart contract wallets, which is generally a way to do access control schemes using smart contracts. And there's really two kinds of smart contract wallets out there. There's smart wallets, that's for example Argent, that's Dharma wallet, that's Ethereum, and these are very much focused on personal use. So they actually try to abstract away the smart contract nature, the technology behind it very much, so that it's very simple and a very good user experience to their users. So they use smart contracts mainly as a tool to enable features and to give almost like a Web 2 kind user experience to users. Then there's multi-signature wallets. They are more focused on high value use. So that's also often used in like a team context. Also multi-signature already indicating that there's often like multiple parties involved in doing transactions using multi-signature wallets. And these wallets use smart contracts to increase security to store assets on Ethereum. So they also don't abstract away too much of the underlying tech, because users often appreciate the transparency and the control that they get, and they don't want to, and they want to actually know what's happening under the hood. So these stats actually show pretty well the difference between these two categories. And by the way, my colleague Toby is giving a talk later today where he's going much more deep into statistics of smart contract wallets, so make sure to check that out. So we have two very prominent products of each category. That's Argent Smart Wallet, and that's the Gnosis Multisig. And you can clearly see that Argent is targeting more of a mass market audience, that it has already more than 5 times as many users as the Gnosis Multisig, even though it has been there for a shorter time period. But the average amount of funds stored on Argent wallets is significantly lower. Actually, the average multisig user, Gnosis multisig user, stores about 1,000 times as much Ether as the average Argent user. So you can clearly see that multisigs are more of a niche market product, but the users are very much trusting it with high amount of funds, and yeah, also coming from multisigs often being used by teams and storing, for example, funds raised in an ICO. So multi-signature wallets have proven themselves to be the most trusted way actually to do self-custody on Ethereum. But what we've seen in the recent years at Gnosis is that our users very much trust their setup, their multi-sig setup, but as the market matures and they want to do actually more with their assets, so they don't want to do more transactions, more smart contract interactions, just more stuff with it, UX actually becomes rather a security factor. So more and more users were asking for better user experience with the Gnosis multisig interface because they were doing more actions with it. And every time you do an action and the user experience isn't straight, it might cause some issues and some human error in the end. So that's the feedback we got, and we built a completely new interface at Gnosis. We call it Gnosis Safe Multisig, and we really built up the user experience around multi-signature wallets from scratch and try to make it as easy as possible. Today you can actually set up a multisig within 30 seconds and then wait maybe a minute to get the transaction mined, but the easy part is only 30 seconds. And it's very intuitive and easy to understand. I wouldn't say that my mother would be able to set up a multisig, but it's definitely you don't need to be a developer anymore to set up a multisig and interact with it. So let's get back to DeFi. Actually, that's the main way how DeFi works on multisigs today. So you put in the smart contract you want to interact with. That's, in this example, the compound smart contract. You paste the IBI that corresponds to that contract. Then you select the methods you want to call. You define your parameters. You send off the transaction. And you hope that what you just did was actually what you intended to do. Yeah, we can definitely improve on that. Here's also an example of how we do SI-to-DAI migration. It's a 23-step process, and that's actually not me making this list just to make a point. That's the official guide from Maker, how to do the SI-to-DAI migration. And that's not how DeFi should work. I mean, some technical knowledgeable people might very well understand what they're doing, and for them this might be fine. But as the market matures and there's more use cases, we should do something about it. So we at Gnosis, when we were building this new Gnosis Safe multisig interface, we also took a look at different options, how we could do DeFi interactions in the future. So one option would be to just make what I've just shown you, this API encoding, easier. We could check if a smart contract is verified on Etherscan and just automatically pull the IBI. We could make other things to just make this feature easier. But in the end, it will still only be something that very technical people would use. So we are actually going to do that, and we know that this is an advanced feature that many would want to have of a multisig, but that's not how the long tail of multisig users will interact with DeFi in the future. So another thing that's possible is to build like a relayer application. For example, Aragon did that with their Aragon agent. That could be a Chrome extension, that could be a mobile application, or something that Aragon did with Frame. That would basically, you could then go to an external web application. You could do your DeFi interactions there, and then the application would relay these transactions back into the multisig, or the DAO in that case, which would be a very scalable way to approach DeFi interactions, because it would, with one application, it would immediately be compatible with most dApps out there. However, first, these dApps don't necessarily expect a multisig when you interact with them. So multi-signature wallets, by their nature, are asynchronous. So it could often take days until the transaction is actually executed, because when there's a team behind it and you need to collect signatures, it might just take that time. And many dApps just expect MetaMask, and they expect that when the transaction is initiated, that it's immediately executed. So that doesn't work. And also, we consider this to be bad UX, just because you then have your multisig interface, you have a external application, and you have third-party interfaces, and this entire system, it's hard to control the user experience around that and to make it smooth. Then the third option we took a look at is native integrations. That's something that, for example, multi-signature wallet does, where you can imagine it to be like on your balance list, you have a one-button solution to lock your DAI into Compound, or to open a Maker wallet, or something like that. And we could do very good UX when we do that, but it's not scalable, because then we at Gnosis would have to decide what are exactly the DeFi applications we want to integrate. We would have to always stay on top of like a very dynamic market where things just can get popular overnight, and that's not something that would scale over time. So we wanted to have a more broader approach here. So I'm going to introduce Safe Apps today. That's our approach to decentralized finance on Multisig. And yeah, you can't really see how it looks like because it's just all white on this screen. But yeah, basically we wanted to turn the Safe Multisig into like a platform which is community driven, so that anyone, every third-party developers can build their own apps into a multisig interface. And basically, because we at Gnosis our goal is to build essential infrastructure for the Ethereum ecosystem, we want to make this really a community project. So we allow anyone to build DeFi applications into the multisig. So that allows us to be one trusted interface for our users, because they already trust us with storing their funds. And we wanted to have a system where they not just trust us to store their funds, but also to put them to work, to interact with them, to do DeFi stuff. Yeah. So what we had to make sure to make this happen is separation of concerns. So we wanted to make sure that we define clearly what these apps can do, and where there might be security relevant things going on, where then we would be like a trusted layer between the apps and the users. So that looks like that. This is the part where the third-party developers can actually do whatever they want. They can design the entire experience for the users. They can, yeah, these apps actually live outside of our own code base, meaning that they can do whatever they want, and this is just loaded within an iframe. So yeah, full control over this part. But whenever there's something security relevant going on, so say the app initiating a transaction, then this would go via us. So we would display to the user what this app wants to do. So the user just basically has to trust one interface and know that whatever is displayed by us in this case is actually what's going to happen with their funds. Yeah. What we then need to make sure too is to create transparency, because what I just shown you is not very transparent to the user. It's just a bunch of cryptic gibberish. And we need to make sure that the user actually knows what consequences their actions have. So that's going to a similar direction how MetaMask solved approvals. So that's how it looked like in MetaMask a while ago. The user is scared by that. He doesn't know what this is, what he's actually confirming. Yeah, what they did is they made it clearer, they made it more transparent, they educated the users more on what consequences their actions actually have. And we need to do something similar. Using Safe Apps. So when we display this app interaction, we would then invest into decoding these interactions and showing to the user clearly what these Safe Apps want to do with their funds. So that could look something like this. You invest DAI into Compound, and that's definitely creates more trust than the one on the left. And we can also show to the user if the Safe App wants to do some transactions where we're not really sure what they do, and where he might want to take a deeper look into the transaction. So we can also warn the user if there's something that's suspicious. Yeah. So then our goal is really to be this most trusted interface to not just store funds, but also to put them to work and manage them. And yeah, that's going to be a long way, and this is the first time we're introducing this project, and we're also happy to get feedback on what you think as a user or also as a developer. But let's go into how you actually build these apps. So we at Gnosis will provide a few building blocks for third-party developers to create these safe apps. That's first Safe SDK that allows, basically because these apps are externally hosted, they need to have some way to communicate with the multisig. So this Safe App SDK helps to facilitate this communication, and yeah, that's something we're going to build. And then the UI kit, we will provide reusable components and UI guidelines for developers to make it easy to create these native experiences within the multisig, but still have the chance to optimize it to their own branding and to really customize the UI. And thirdly, we are building a developer portal, which is really going to be the one stop solution for anyone that wants to get started on safe apps, and when they have questions, we have a forum built in so they can ask questions and exchange ideas, so on. So integrating safe apps when you've built them is actually as easy as opening a URL on a browser. So these apps either are deployed in IPFS or are hosted on an external website, and then what the user does is just take the IPFS hash or the URL and use that within the Safe Multisig interface to load these external apps. And we, of course, also want to have ways for our users to discover these apps, to discover cool use cases. So we will also have more curated ways for people to find these. But then we probably would require these apps to be actually live on IPFS, so we can make sure that the security behind it is straight. All right, so in my view, Safe Apps is really the best way to build DeFi apps today, because you're tapping into an existing user base. These users are already onboarded. You don't need to worry about them having crypto or not, of them having a wallet or not. So they're already existing crypto users, and they're actually high-value users. So I've shown you before, there's just a lot of funds stored on Multisigs. Safe Multisig holds millions of US dollars in digital assets, and we clearly see the need of these users to connect them to DeFi. And yeah, so you get this high-value audience like from the get-go, and you can also expect that every user has a smart contract wallet, because every Safe Multisig is a smart contract wallet under the hood, and then you can leverage the capabilities of these smart contract wallets, meaning you can build with multisend, you can use batch transactions to make the user experience of your apps a lot better, and you don't have to ask users 5-6 times to sign a transaction to do more complex DeFi interactions. So that's the timeline. We have been starting now to build the framework around the safe apps, and to build our own example apps, just to get a feeling ourselves how this looks like, and what also developers need to make these apps work. And we now started reaching out to a bunch of companies and independent developers to build first external apps, and to get feedback on the developer tooling and build up this developer tooling. And then going into summer, we're trying to push more on like completely third-party applications, where you can expect us to be present on hackathons, and we are also going to tackle this complex task of transaction decoding and trying to make it as transparent as possible to users to interact with these apps. So that was mostly it for the Safe Apps part. Some quick product announcements for the Safe Multisig. So far it was only possible to use a web app for the Safe Multisig, or clone the project on GitHub. But we're also building a desktop app, so you can download it and use it on macOS or Windows. Then we have native hardware wallet support. So today you could already use your ledger and your Trezor using MetaMask, but especially for people that don't trust MetaMask, or that just don't want to have this like additional layer in between their hardware wallet and their multisig. This one wasn't really convenient, so we are building very native integrations for Ledger and Trezor, so you can just plug in your device using your USB and then connect to the multisig, ideally with the desktop app. And then finally, you can also store ERC 721 on your safe multisig, so you can manage your ENS domains, you can have your high-value digital art pieces on there, or for example, we are going to use it for having DAppCon or for distributing DAppCon tickets as NFTs, and yeah. That also opens more use cases for the safe multisig, and especially with these safe apps coming along. Probably like a CryptoKitties safe app won't be the ideal use case because the audience is more high net worth. These are not consumers, but still we can see NFTs being very high value assets as well. So that's also going to be interesting. And all of these 3 things that I just announced will be live within the next 2 weeks. So yeah, and a lot more coming later this year. So that was it. If you're interested in building safe apps, make sure to get in touch. And yeah, as I said, we have a talk of Toby later today around like smart contract use and like very deep dive statistics on how different smart contracts are being used. And we're also having another safe related talk of Richard Meisner, who's going to talk about the safe proxy kit and the way to another tooling for developers to make dApps better. Yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
I'll be around for questions later if you.
Is there any chance the desktop app will also work for Linux?
Definitely.
Any more questions? Thank you.